Hello, my name is Rich Spots. I'm an organist from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and I'm here with Ann Labounsky, and she is Professor Emerita of Organ and Sacred Music from Duquesne University. And we're here to talk about Charles Tournemire and his L'Orgue Mystique. In 2019, we did the complete L'Orgue Mystique, and it's a very strange piece of music because it's 14 to 15 hours, depending on your mood, and, and 253 movements. And it both is a liturgical work and a symphonic work, and it's not well known or not widely played for a variety of reasons. And in 2026, during Lent, I'll be doing the complete performance again at St. Paul's Chestnut Hill, which is a town in Philadelphia. And it's a lovely Aeolian Skinner organ that was just newly restored. And so, actually, what we probably should do is explain what L'Orgue Mystique is and who this guy Charles Tournemire is. And just for reference, Ann Labounsky has actually studied with Jean Langlais,
Yes.
who was Tournemire's successor at his church in Paris, Saint Clotilde. So she has some insight that is really important. So how would you describe L'Orgue Mystique?
Well, you could say that it's a liturgical work, and Tournemire did write it with that in mind, that it would be used during a Mass. Particularly, he wanted it to be during a high Mass with the choir. And unfortunately, that didn't happen during his lifetime. But in 2019, and that was really a wonderful thing, when I think of what you accomplished here in Pittsburgh, going to 8 different churches and performing the entire sequence of this work.
It is. I find the work quite interesting.
Well, as I wrote in the review of your book, thinking of what Tournemire himself wanted, he wanted it to be used in the context of a Mass. And so we actually did that at St. Andrew's. And that, when you do liturgical music where it's intended to be used in the right context, it brings a different meaning to it. And it's interesting, during Tournemire's lifetime, he had always wanted L'Orgue Mystique, these parts of the Mass with organ music based on Gregorian chant. He had wanted this to be done in the context of a Mass, and it never was. But then it was wonderful that we were able to do that here, and then subsequently it was done at St. Bernard's.
Yes. It's. I think when you play L'Orgue Mystique, you really have to understand it liturgically because there are 5 movements: prelude to the introit, an offertory, an elevation, a communion, and then the final piece, which we would call a postlude.
Right.
And the prelude to the introit and the elevation they tend to be very minimalistic.
They're very short because it was supposed to be done during the Mass at that point in the Mass, and so that was not an extended length of time.
Yes, and I find a lot of people, other organists who just sort of blow this work off, they look at these short little movements and think, this is, it's just a little ditty.
But they're not.
They're not. And one thing I find valuable to tell audiences about is you kind of need to look at this like a Bach cantata, where the prelude to the introit and the elevation are sort of like the recitatives, and then the the offertory and the communion are sort of the arias, And then the final movement is the chorus piece.
Oh, I like that comparison. That's very interesting.
It's even though miniatures, like if you were to look at like things like artists like Leonardo da Vinci, we have Vitruvian Man, the small sketches of the guy stretched out, and then the Mona Lisa, and then the Last Supper, and the scales are different, and their intents are different, but they all have this artistic integrity to it. And
you can tell who did it. And I think that when you get to know Tournemire's music, even these little miniature parts of the L'Orgue Mystique, you say, oh, yeah, that certainly sounds like Tournemire. And some of these movements are actually very easy. And some of the movements are very difficult.
Sometimes Tournemire's music, for lack of a better word, tends to be very spiritual and authentically religious in its intent. And so while it can have moments of grandeur, it also can have moments of profound introspection. And when Tournemire he can be very difficult to play, but his music can have this spiritual bent that makes it less satisfying to a flashy concert performer. And even some of the offertories in communions are a bear to play, even though they sound
easy.
Easy,
Sometimes students say, "I want you to give me music that sounds difficult, but it's very easy to play." And with Tournemire, you have a little bit of both. You have some that sounds hard, and it is hard, and some that it sounds hard. I remember my other teacher, Andre Marchal, used to say, well, the thing with Tournemire is, you're hardly into it, and, the one hand is playing on this manual and the other hand is playing here, and it takes a certain
way of looking at it.
You have to understand the style to understand how it all fits together.
Yeah, he would often write, normal French organ that would have three manuals would have what we call the swell, the positif, and the great, top to bottom. And so Tournemire would write the piece of music with the top stave being the top manual, and and so forth, and so on down to the great. And it doesn't matter if it's being played by the left hand or the right hand. He just is visually writing, because this guy's on top, so the stave is on top. And so it can be confusing. It makes sense, though, a lot of times, because he has the organist perform on two manuals at once with one hand.
Yes, that's tricky.
And it's actually kind of valuable to see what manual is above, and it reads really well. I think with L'Orgue Mystique and playing the whole thing, even though it's a lot, and I think hearing the whole thing, it gives you a sense of the unified structure of the work, and also hearing the liturgical year happen right in close succession. And it all comes together and makes sense, because when we experience church, especially like in the Pentecost season, when it sort of rambles on and
goes on for the whole summer and into the fall.
We just have no sense. We're just there in the moment.
Yes.
And we don't get the overall meaning of what's going on. And hearing it all together helps give us a sense of the narrative of the liturgical year. And
that's what Tournemire really intended, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, and Tournemire himself wrote that he said, now, Bach wrote the liturgical year. It was some chorale chorales based on the seasons of the church year, and he said, I use this as a model, but then this is for the Roman Catholic Church, where chant, Gregorian chant, is the song of the church. The irony of it is that in many churches, neither Gregorian chant or chorales are used. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah, it's there's some politics and that it's a long story.
It is a long story.
When Tournemire, in creating the plan for this, he cited the collection of books called L'Année liturgique, and it's by Dom Guéranger, who was of Salem, and he wrote Tournemire had a whole plan written out. He did diverge from it in the final.
And that's what's so interesting about this book that you've written. We're so excited about it because in this book, which is called Charles Tournemire, L'Orgue Mystique, la Haute Mission, the High Mission. It explains what Tournemire was trying to do with this. And one of the wonderful things about Richard's book is the showing all of what Tournemire's original plan was, and then where he changed it as he was writing it. And he gives all of the Gregorian chants, just the incipits, but enough that you see, this is this, and here's here are the readings, and here's the chant, and you can see how the whole thing fits together, which is really a remarkable contribution that you've given.